Hello and welcome to the Eye on the U podcast, the Miami Herald's Miami Hurricanes podcast. I'm David Wilson and I am joined as always on the other line by Susan Miller Degnan, our Hurricanes beat writer here at the Herald. Susan, what's going on?
Hey, David. Not much, just possibly a quarterback change and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Getting ready to go out of town for the game.
I will tell you, I've covered not most, I guess most games I've covered Miami football games since I started at the Herald. Obviously don't go on every road trip. Very rarely do I miss a home game. Never happier to miss a home game than I was on Saturday when I was down at Homestead Miami Speedway for some NASCAR stuff because woo!
Yeah, I know. What was your reaction? What was your I didn't ask you. What was your reaction?
Well, I really did not watch very much of it at all.
Gotcha.
I honestly haven't even really gone back and watched much of it because what is there to say about a game where you turn the ball over 8 times? When they went up 20, I think they were down 17-14 at halftime, and score right out of the gate. I was like, all right, they're gonna be fine.
Right.
Without Tyler, especially Jake throws a 74-yard touchdown, right? I think to Colby right out of halftime. It's my reaction was how basically and not, Miami has lost a lot of games to teams they should not have lost to. They've lost in a lot of different ways. There've been games where it feels like they can't do anything on offense. There have been games like North Carolina a couple of years ago where they give up a bajillion yards. There's even the Middle Tennessee. This was a new way for Miami to lose. 8 turnovers. What was it? 5 fumbles? Is that right? 5 fumbles?
Yes. Three interceptions.
Yeah, 5 fumbles.
5 fumbles, 4 turnovers in the fourth quarter.
Even the FIU game, I think they threw 3 interceptions in that game. But a 5 fumble game, that's a new one. That doesn't happen very often in college football. My reaction was I didn't think it could get that ugly, basically.
No, nobody did. And by the fourth quarter, we thought we had it all under control when there were 4 turnovers, and then in the fourth quarter, they had 4 turnovers,
right?
And it was 17-7 at halftime.
17-7. Sorry, I scored twice right out of halftime.
That's okay. But so all the reporters in the press box, we were all like, okay, we got this. And then all of a sudden there's 1 turnover, another turnover, and everybody, you could hear everybody yelling in the press box. How many now? How many fumbles again? How many interceptions?
It was a Count Von Count performance.
Yeah. How many Jake? How many whatever?
Yeah.
Oh my God, everybody was going crazy.
Yeah, so pretty bad. We'll get to, as you alluded to, it sounds like Jake Garcia is going to start this weekend with Tyler Van Dyke injuring his arm in the first half of the Duke game. Our friend Manny Navarro at The Athletic said he saw him in a sling on campus Monday. Kane Sport reported yesterday or this morning.
I guess this morning.
We're recording this Wednesday afternoon. Reported that Jake will start and Tyler's out probably at least 2 weeks. It will be reevaluated after the Florida State game.
Correct.
And while Mario Cristobal did not confirm that today, he did say that Tyler's barely practiced and it's been Jake Garcia getting the bulk of the reps at the first team. So we'll preview Jake Garcia's likely first start in the second half of the episode. But we got to start, I guess, but we'll zoom through Duke because I know a lot of people, who wants to talk about this game still. But it was really bad.
Once in a lifetime. Come on.
It was really bad. I mean, like I said, Miami has found a lot of ways to lose games over the last 15 years, basically. And this was a new one. And the thing that I think is discouraging about it, there's a lot of things discouraging about it, but the thing that is most discouraging about it was something, I don't remember if we talked about it on this show last week or something you just wrote about in some of your preview stuff, was that's kind of the MO on what Duke does well. They were entered the weekend 28th in the country in takeaways, way up in the national leaderboards and fumble recoveries. They go for those strips. It's the kind of their whole game plan. And Miami, a game where you lose 5 fumbles, you can, fumbles in a lot of ways are kind of fluky. They're flukier than interceptions, right? The ball bounces the right way or it doesn't. But even just putting the ground, like to lose 5 fumbles means you got to fumble 5 times. And I think Mario and everyone said there was a point of emphasis going into the game. And they kind of like played exactly into Duke's hand. And the other thing is, Duke, that's a first year coaching staff too. So it's not like they have a big advantage in continuity and all that kind of stuff.
No, I mean, yeah. And what I'm wondering is, and I really wanted to ask Mario that today, but I had one question. And I was the one who asked Mario, did Tyler Van Dyke practice this week? That was a key question. Okay. And so I couldn't ask what I wanted to about turnovers and how do you I know they work on them, always work on them. Okay. Ball security, but knowing what they know now, and it's in the players' heads, I don't care what they say about moving on. How do they, I don't know, how do they prepare them even psychologically? I don't know, or can you, from not getting in their head? I mean, Jaylan Knighton, I think, has now fumbled. I tweeted either 2 out of the last 3 games or 3 out of the last 4 games, a lot of games, maybe 2 out of the last 3.
And had 2 on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, just like, that Virginia, that's in their head too, knowing that, how does it affect their play? How do they work on that and stuff? I think it's a little nerve-wracking. Yeah,
obviously Jake Garcia's performance was not good. 2 fumbles, 3 interceptions. I worry a little bit less about that because I kind of, when a backup quarterback gets thrown in the middle of the game, I tend to kind of like throw that performance out a little bit. Circumstance.
Oh, plus, the offensive line. I mean,
a bunch of offensive line injuries.
Yeah, the poor kid was getting killed, just like Tyler. Poor Tyler.
Yeah, so I tend to kind of throw that out, but yeah, the concern is like, the one thing we talk about with Miami football, it feels like every year, is they're always like the most undisciplined team in the country. It feels like to us, right? And I'm probably not 100% true, but probably pretty close to it when you look over a 15-year stretch. Like if you were to say which team has consistently been the most undisciplined, like Miami would probably be up there, always one of the more penalized teams in the country. Last few years have missed more tackles than anyone else. Bad quarterback play for a lot of these last 15 years leads to a lot of giveaways and turnovers. Bad O-line play a lot of the last 15 years has led to a lot of sacks and with that fumbles and stuff like that.
Right.
And I think the whole idea with Mario Cristobal, like that's his whole sell. He had basically 2 sales points, right? Is like, I guess I'll say 3. 1 was recruiting. That was the whole deal. 2 was like physicality, O-line play, right? O-line, as I just mentioned, has been one of the weaknesses of this program for the last 15 years. Mario is a great offensive line coach, both at Oregon and Alabama. And then the third one is like, he is the drill sergeant, right? He is the sort of militaristic, no mistakes, no, like never get too high, like never, basically perfection, right? And obviously you cannot implement that in 1 year. But they're not anywhere close to it right now. And obviously that all those three things he pitches, just like any new coach who comes in, it's going to take time. Whatever your strength is, you can't recruit an offensive line in 1 year. You obviously can't recruit the kind of talent that he wants in 1 year. And you can't, he comes in, I keep saying it, like 10 to 15 of these players are his. Most of them are Manny Diaz's or even Mark Rick's, some of them. But I mean, we just saw a turnover game unlike any we've ever seen for Miami. The week
Yeah,
before, we saw one of the most penalized performances in Miami history, as they barely escaped with a win against Virginia Tech in a game they probably should have won by a lot. A couple of weeks before that, we see them, Middle Tennessee, a different kind of undisciplined, is just like defensive breakdown after defensive breakdown. And every week it's kind of something new, and it's always really ugly.
Yeah, I mean, and last week it was just almost sad. They had after the what was it, 17 turnover? Penalties for 159 yards.
16 or 17, I don't remember the exact number.
Yeah, I think it was 17. And then they got it down to 3 penalties for 30
No, that's
yards.
the other thing. It's kind of like
which is good. It's good.
The game, they give up a bajillion yards, and then the North Carolina game, they play the best defense anyone has played against North Carolina all year. Like, they cannot sustain anything either, which is kind of baffling.
Yeah, I mean, so Mario has stayed obviously he's one of the best recruiters in the nation, and that he still is, because you said you think these guys, you're the recruiting guru, you think they're sticking, the guys he has for this coming season, right?
I think so. The ones who are, I've said it a couple times on the show, I think the ones who are committed will stay committed. I mean, everyone, even if they were 7-0 right now, like, you're going to lose kids sometimes, right? Like,
right.
So I'm not going to say that all 17 kids who are committed right now will sign, but I think a pretty big majority of it will, and potentially all 17. I'm not saying anyone is on the verge of not, but I think they're gonna be fine keeping the class together, pretty close to intact. But yeah, it can't help. Winning can only help.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, but so that's part's great, but the other stuff, the offensive line is now, I think, 96th nationally in sacks per game, allowing 96 sacks per game.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see, sacks allowed. Yes. 2.57 a game, times whatever. But it's getting worse.
Yeah.
Obviously,
and the injuries obviously haven't helped, but yes. Yeah.
The injuries have definitely
going to be one of the strengths of this offense. And a big reason we thought it was going to be was because we thought Zion Nelson was maybe the best player on this team.
And now we don't think, he might not be back.
Yeah, the way Mario Cristobal talked about it on Monday, he didn't rule out the possibility that he will not play again this year, which is obviously not a good sign for a guy who I think we all expected to be ready to go by the Texas A&M game, and he was. And I think, there was a thought that maybe he wasn't going to miss any time after knee surgery in the summer.
But I wonder what setback. He keeps saying, he said setback. I just don't know what that means, so. We
haven't seen practice since week 1 of the season, so we haven't.
No.
If he's been out there or limited or anything, it's hard to know.
Yeah, and I don't know. I hope they can get over it. I really do. On the road, they play better on the road, in my opinion. So maybe other than maybe
have this year, right? What are they? They're they've lost already 3 games at home, and they lost at but they're 2-3 at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Miami's lost the last 3 games at Hard Rock.
3 at Hard Rock.
Yeah, last 3 at Hard Rock. So, and Virginia, Virginia beat Georgia Tech, but that was ugly last week. That was a Thursday night game, so they've had a little more time between games. But Virginia's 3-4 and 1-3.
Yeah, well, we talked about it last week. Last week we did our very we've had a couple episodes that have gotten outdated really quickly because of the schizophrenic nature of this team. But we went from after last week, I think both of us said they would make a bowl, right? Because they had, I think I said 7-5, maybe you said 6-6 or 7-5. And we said, they got a couple games they should win. They got Duke, they got Virginia, and they've got Georgia Tech. And
now, well, I don't know. They have to win 3 out of the last 5.
Right. And they still have a lot of win. again, they're favored this weekend at Virginia. They'll be favored, I would think, at Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech's playing a lot better now since they fired Jeff Collins. Pitt is not very good at home. They could be favored in that game, but I mean, Pitt started.
David, they're favored every game. Miami's favored every game, and then they
Clemson or Florida State. But yeah, that's what I'm saying is they dropped one of those. I mean, Duke at home, like that was supposed to be like pen that one in almost.
Well, exactly. And so now if you say 3 out of 5, nothing's a gimme for it to me.
Nothing, right? Yeah, because they're one of the worst teams in Power 5 right now.
Yeah, nothing's a gimme. So I don't like nothing. 0 is a gimme for Miami, and nobody thinks they're going to beat Clemson. So in a way, they have to win 3 out of 4 to get.
Yeah, and they're going to be pretty heavy underdogs. I mean, maybe not because it'll be a home game, but Florida State is a lot better than Miami right now.
Well, yeah, we'll see. But that game they get up. That'll be
throw out the record.
That'll be wild.
They say.
Yeah.
So I guess we should, the big topic of conversation, we're 7 games into the Mario Cristobal era, is like we're already at like referendum time kind of, because it was the lead. I thought a very funny lead to your story on Monday. You asked the first question of Mario's press conference, basically a big picture question. Like, I think you're specifically asked, what were some of the deficiencies you saw with this
inadequacies?
Inadequacies, that was the word.
Because that's what he told QAM.
Right. And he was like, I want to talk about the next game instead. And then no one asked him about the next game. As
he said, well, no, he said, I'll answer everything.
Right,
To
his credit, he answered every question.
He did answer everything, and he's been great.
And he got a lot of, I don't want to say hard questions, because how hard could a question about football be, right? Like, it's not like there's scandals that we're asking about or anything. It's just like, what's wrong with this program? Like, why are you the right guy? That kind of stuff. And, he answered it all. And there's only so much, he didn't
answer specifically. He can't, what's he going to say?
Right, well, what can you say? And what can an answer do to change anything? It's Miami gave him a lot of money. He's clearly this year is not living up to that $8 million salary he's making. But the case that he makes, and I think it's a reasonable case, is like they have to build this up from the ground up. And, we've gone through this whole rigmarole every week at this point, it feels like, but, they're fully looking to the future. I know, like, he can say we were worried on a week by week basis, but I'll tell you what, if they were worried about winning 9-10 games this year, they would probably be running a different offense. They would have probably handled the portal differently, right? As I said last week, it's not like they had a Manny Diaz, Jalen Phillips, Quincy Roche, KJ Osborne. Like, they didn't get a bunch of NFL guys other than Akeem Mesidor and Daryl Jackson, I guess. But it's not like they were getting these win now. Those are young guys for the most part. They weren't getting All-Americans through the portal. They wide receiver was a deficiency that they didn't handle, but there's only so much. What can he prove now at this point, right? I mean, if you beat Clemson and Florida State, I guess you prove a lot, but like at this point, they just gotta. Right now, they don't look like what kind of team Mario Cristobal was promising they would be, right? Whether directly or just what we expected based on his track record and all that kind of stuff. And that's now, obviously you'd like them to make a bowl, you'd like them to win some big games, but more than anything else, they gotta look like a team that, I've said it a million times, they don't have an identity, it doesn't feel like, and they gotta look like a Mario Cristobal team here in the next couple of weeks, or all we're going to have to go off of what a Mario Cristobal team looks like is this, and this isn't good. No. And it felt like they were getting an identity. I wrote a story saying they have an identity. It says a passing team. Right. Because Tyler was all of a sudden doing great again and, really winging the ball and they got a receiver. This kid's good. Yeah, let's finish this and then we'll talk real quick about Colby Young, because this is an awesome.
Okay, let's finish this. All right. But anyway, they were gaining an identity, and I don't know, now it's all over the place. So anyway, that's a good segue into Jake Garcia, who we assume, I mean, I don't see how Tyler was in a sling, and you know, he looked like he was very hurt last game, and you know, his arm was against it. I mean, he just did not look good. You could tell. And I've heard he has not practiced this week at all. Even though Mario said he took very few snaps or whatever he said.
I mean, you can always say, oh, he took limited part in practice, and that means he went through stretching or something, right?
Yeah, he took, I don't know, whatever. But we'll all be in shock if he's not gonna play. I just don't see, even, you know, though we haven't gotten that straight. So yeah, I mean, this is Jake's time, at least for that day. It certainly appears to be, at least that day, he would get his first start. If he starts, first career start, and he has played. He's played several games in his career, and he's had a lot of, actually a good amount, right, of playing time, what do you say?
For a guy who's a redshirt freshman, he's played a lot.
I mean, 32 of 49.
Yeah, played what, half the game against Central Connecticut State last year before he got hurt. And then this year,
I mean,
played meaningful snaps in 2 games. So
he's been sacked 6 times.
For a guy who's only played in like 5 games and has only been healthy for 11 games in his career. Yeah, he's played a lot.
Yeah, he's been in there and played a lot, but I you know, it's going to be interesting to see if he starts, how they streamline the offense. I don't know if they keep it a little simpler, or like you said, when you're thrown in the middle of a game and it's all hairy and harried and crazy. But they're going to have it's going to be interesting to see what Josh Gaddis does, the offensive coordinator, and they've been running so poorly.
Yeah.
That and the offensive line has not been doing well, that I mean, they kind of need to run a little bit this week. But can they?
Yeah, I mean, Henry Parrish's return definitely helped a little bit, and
Yes.
I guess it seems like Ja'Kai Clark is.
Yes, he said today. Yeah,
back at center.
He said Ja'Kai's going to be back, because I think Jonathan Dennis is really hurt.
Yeah, and obviously, Justice Olashone is hurt, who's a starting guard. They've rotated. They played 3 different starters now at right guard. Lawrence Seymour getting his first start last week. So
right.
It's not a great situation for Jake Garcia to come into, except for that Colby Young looks like a potential first round NFL draft pick. That's 6'5", and just, you know, you can just throw it. He's a guy who can make contested catches, which is I don't know, an inexperienced quarterback's dream, kind of.
Yeah, definitely. I think that running and that running game is going to be really important. Now, do they hand it off to Jaylan? I think they're not too pleased with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, Henry Parrish is definitely going to be the guy. I mean, you can't play one running back mostly, unless
right. And and
or Sean Tucker or something. But
what happened to Thad Franklin?
Yeah, they just said he just didn't play. It wasn't an injury.
Yeah, he said he's fine. It's just weird. So I don't know. They got to run the ball. They really have to. They have to run the ball. Or Jake is just going to get, pounded.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough situation for Jake Garcia, but I don't know. I like I said at the top, I throw out a little bit last game, and I feel like he can, is he better than Tyler Van Dyke? Probably not. But can he still get it done this weekend? I think so, right? We've seen enough.
Yes.
We've seen enough positive signs from him. He made a big throw to Keyshawn Smith in the first drive. He came in against Middle Tennessee, set him up for a touchdown there. Obviously, he throws 2 quick touchdowns when he checks. Well, not right after he checks in, but in the start of the second half on Saturday, including the one long one to Colby Young. I know it was just Central Connecticut State last year, but obviously he was really good in that too.
He was really good. Listen, David, I
And
think
this guy was a big recruit, right? He's the biggest quarterback
he's
recruit
good.
in a long time.
I mean, he's really talented. He has a great arm. He's really, everything good about him. The only thing is he doesn't have a lot of experience on this level, and will he panic?
Well, I don't think there's a lot of help, right? You mentioned the offensive line. If he's under pressure, that's when young quarterbacks struggle, right? Tyler Van Dyke, a lot of the reason he was great last year is because they blocked really well for him, right? Like for a guy who got thrown in the middle of the season, he, other than really the first couple of games, he never looked frazzled. And part of that is because he wasn't getting hit all the time. In the running game, right? Like Jake's gonna have to win the game, right? In all likelihood, you're not gonna win this game by running for 200 yards.
Now, I think here's the thing, Jake. Well, when I meant by panicked or frazzled, whatever, it's when everything breaks down.
Right?
Is he gonna be smart enough, or is he gonna have enough control to stop, to not think, oh, I'm just gonna throw it up. This guy looks like he could catch the ball, and then it gets picked off. He needs to be able to have self-control and throw the ball out of bounds, that kind of thing. And a lot of times that takes a while for a quarterback. I've seen several new Miami quarterbacks, and they all have to,
especially when they were like a superstar their whole life, right? Like, which Jake has been. Like you play hero ball.
Right. No,
I think young quarterbacks can go one of two ways, right? One, either they're just not confident enough to like try the hard throws,
right,
or they're too confident and try to make too difficult of throws. And it's striking that perfect balance, which is tough to do.
Right. Again, they're playing on the road, right? So maybe the Virginia fans will show up, and that'll get Miami psyched up or something. Maybe it'll help them a little.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. What do you make? So Jake, like I said, he started off really well, obviously Saturday, right? Leads them to a quick comeback right at the start of the second half, and then kind of melts down. What did you kind of make of his performance? And do you like we were just saying, like, did it just kind of unravel on him? Like, is that what you kind of, the sense you got of what happened on Saturday when it got bad, it just snowballed?
Yeah, that's the sense I got. I mean, as soon as I think Mario Cristobal said this, and I think it's correct. When the UM had two quick touchdowns in the third quarter, the 71-yard pass that you're talking about to Colby Young, and a 34-yard pass to Will Mallory.
Yep.
So at that point, Miami took over. I mean, was leading 21-17.
They were down 10 at the half, as we said, and all of a sudden we're ahead.
Yeah, now they're up 21-17, but then Duke sustained an 18-play, 79-yard drive. And that was it. It's like an 80-yard drive. 9:22 of the clock they ate. 9 minutes and 22 second drive. And that kind of, and so Miami's defense was out there forever. And that kind of took the wind out of Miami. I mean, there were, and as far as Jake, it just went downhill from there. Then they were playing panic kind of, or playing, trying to come from behind. And
yeah, it's like they always say with pitchers, right? Like if they have to wait out a long inning, sometimes it kind of ends their day, right? It was like, especially with a young quarterback where you're not used to the rhythms of a college game and all that. Yeah, a long.
And Duke got pumped up.
Yeah, and as you said, they've got a good. That's their whole shtick, is they force a lot of turnovers, and
right.
Miami fell right into their hands in that regard. So, like, well, what are your expectations for Jake this weekend, though? Do you set any, or do you like, or are there benchmarks you kind of look for? What do you want to see? I mean, because here's the other thing I guess we should say is we talked in the first half of the episode that like Miami's looking at the future now, whether or not they admit it. Like you see the way the freshmen guys like Nigel Kelly and Wesley Saint, they're getting more and more snaps. They're clearly not worried about Jakari Brown's red shirt. Like he's getting in there now in spots. Their best receiver is Colby Young, who's a sophomore. They're, a lot of their best defensive players are freshmen or sophomores, juniors. Jake Garcia might be the quarterback for this whole thing next year, right? I mean, who knows with Tyler's injury, what that's going to do for his draft prospects and stuff like that. But
I don't think yeah, Tyler, I don't think the draft is, I know it's early. I don't know. I don't see it as an
He's
option
not going
right
in the
now.
first round, but I mean, if you're a good quarterback, you still get drafted, right? Like, so my point is, I'm not saying that it's definitely going to happen, but there's a chance that Jake Garcia is always, the plan has always been he's the quarterback of the future. We get a little glimpse of the future this weekend. I think that's what's most interesting to me right now. If I'm a Miami fan looking for reasons to get excited about this thing, is like,
True.
we're not, obviously we're not passing judgment on Jake Garcia based on Saturday, but you know, it's a important learning experience for him, for a guy who might, like I said, might be this team's quarterback next year.
Including, by the way, the future, including Jakari Brown. So I'm positive that he's going to get in this game in some way. And who knows? I don't think they're going to, by the way, you said, what do I expect? I expect what I would like is no interceptions. And yeah, and the thing is, if he runs too much, they can't afford to get him hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, they have Jakari Brown, but you know, Mario said today that Peyton Matoka took snaps too.
Yeah, I mean, he has to. He's the third string quarterback right now.
Got reps. Yeah. So
a third string quarterback who's never gotten close to touching the field in any meaningful capacity.
Meaningful, right? For sure. So what I would like is no picks. That's kind of asking a lot, right?
Yeah, I'm not, because like I want to see him be aggressive, right? That's his MO, is he's gonna like take stuff.
Yeah, see, but
I'm more worried about the like completion percentage number, right? And not even like, I don't want him just, well, because maybe that is what I want. I want to see him check down sometimes, right? I want to see him make the smart plays. I don't want to feel like he's boom or bust, right? Which is, I think we saw that. It was kind of the Middle Tennessee game, right? He comes in, that first drive is awesome. Hits a bomb and makes some good throws, and then by the end of the game, his numbers were like, yeah, because like he didn't.
Yeah, but now, David, remember, people are now they're all watching Jake.
Yeah.
For the last 2 years, they're all watching Jake. Everybody knows his tendencies. Everybody knows they're going to watch everything. Yeah.
Virginia defense is pretty good. So.
Yep. So. I don't know. I'm not saying I expect a UM win. I'm really hoping that UM wins.
I don't think you can bank on a UM win ever again this season, basically, unless they prove otherwise. Definitely a winnable game. But. Yeah, like you said, you can't expect anything from Miami right now. It's been you know, it's still very similar to the last couple of years, right?
And it's
with
been
exception to the one De'Ara King season. Every other year, except for the De'Ara King year and the Orange Bowl season, we're right back to where Miami is every single year.
Yeah, and by the way, I know we got to end this soon, but the fans have clearly kind of split into two factions. Okay, there's one faction that is just so ticked off at the hiring of Mario now.
Yeah.
And just, you know, why did we spend 80 million on this? And then the other half is just as strong in their convictions that he is going to bring this program back and that it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we trust in Mario, and Mario we trust.
Yeah. And I think the correct answer is probably somewhere in the middle. They should be much better this year, but I think you can still believe in Mario's long-term vision is kind of the way I come down on this. I asked him a very poorly worded question on Monday. He gave an okay answer too, basically about like, you know, when he stepped in at Oregon, he got promoted. He had been there for a long time and knew the personnel, knew what this program's strengths and weaknesses were. Obviously in Miami, he was learning it all from the outside. You know, I think the way he handles this coming off season will be much different than the way he handles his first off season. Just in, you know, he goes in and now he knows, all right, we got to hit the portal for this and this. And we need to focus on recruiting these types of kids. So I think the year 1 to year 2 jump, for most coaches is the big one. You would just like year 1 to be on better, I guess. All right, we're about to run out of time here. So thanks as always for listening. You can follow Susan Miller Degnan on Twitter at @SMillerDegnan. She will be up in beautiful Charlottesville, Virginia this weekend.
Beautiful.
Probably gonna be pretty
Lee.
nice weather, I would guess, right?
I think it's going to be in the 50s.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Fall in Virginia is pretty good.
You went to school in Syracuse, so you think that. But yeah, it's going to be beautiful. It will.
Yeah, follow her as she is up there for potentially and likely Jake Garcia's first start as a Miami Hurricane. You can follow me on Twitter at DBWilson2. I will also be out of town this weekend up in New Hampshire at another wedding because it's
Wedding tour.
I mean, I'm 30 years old. It's what happens. So I'm supposed to be in the 30s where I am this weekend. So I'm envious of that 50 whatever degree weather you're going to have in Virginia. But I'll be paying attention. It's a Friday night wedding, so I'll probably be finding somewhere to watch the games on it might be hard to get them to put on the Miami Virginia game in New Hampshire on a Saturday afternoon.
Well, get out your little phone.
I guess it'll be on TV, right? That's Boston College ACC footprint.
I don't think it's ACC, right? Isn't it? It's Bally.
Well, it's local, but that means it's probably on like the local channel wherever, it's regional sports networks.
Right, regional.
I'm saying I think New Hampshire is probably technically ACC country because Boston College is the nearest big program.
Good point.
Other than UNH, which I think is probably FCS, I would guess. But anyway, hopefully I'll be able to watch. I'm really curious to see what Jake's going to look like. So I think it'll be pretty interesting. But anyway, thanks as always for listening, and we will talk to you guys next weekend.